Taties by Dana Lee. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, beneath the rolling hills of green, lived a family of little brownies known as the Taties, amongst themselves and the denizen of hedgehog, caterpillar, finch, and blackbird that inhabited the forgotten hedgerow garden. They were only a couple of inches tall, all a gangle of little brown legs and arms, with round tummies and sweet faces, with dark little eyes hidden beneath brown caps, tousled with puffs of pussy willow, gathered with their tiny hands in their caps, when their hardy little tree came in bloom. There they lived, deep beneath the knotty roots, shielded through the winter squall and frosty spring, by the hills and the friendly boughs of the old tree. No one knows where they came from for sure. Some say they are kin to the hedgehog, or flown in by blackbird or the wings of a dove, but I believe they come from the forgotten potato patches of long ago. There was old Daddy Taty, with the gnarly little hands and long beard of snow. Mummy Tata, with her sweet smile and soft brown hair hanging loose beneath her tidy brown cap. Sweet Tata, with her pumpkin-colored suit and candy-colored curls of bright hair. Leaf Tata, whose cap hung long and stripy to hide his sleepy head, and little Fry Taty, who was not so wise or wizened by his superior lifespan of 102. There were also other brownies and such beneath the hills, some not so nice as the Taties, who were themselves too secretive to ever be noticed as nice. Just beyond the broken stream lived the likes of the rotten Taties, who the Taties refute any relation to. The rotten Taties had rotten teeth and tatty rags spotted with mold. They had the putrid stink that only a rotten potato can own. There was also an old hermit of a gnome who called an old rabbit hole home. He was neither as nice as the Taties nor as nasty as the old rotten Taties, who claimed the ancient oak and the lands amongst hedgerow their own rotten empire. But for the Taties nestled beneath the soft brown earth hidden from spite, the rottenness didn't sink through. It was springtime, and they had enough toils, troubles, and good times of their own to keep them busy, and they were a busy clan as a whole, except for lazy Leaf, who can always be found napping beneath the roots and leaves. It had already been raining for nearly a week one morning, when plip, plop, plip, a drop had splashed down upon Daddy in his nice clean nightcap as he lay slumbering in his cozy little bed. "Dag-nabbit," sputtered Daddy at the rude awakening as he jumped out of bed shaking out his cap. Mummy Tata was already up brewing coffee that she had made from dried yams and spreading dandelion jelly on some mooncakes that she had baked in her little stone stove. My, the trouble," she muttered as she wiped her hands on her yellow apron in response to Daddy's outburst. Into the dark kitchen he squished, scratching his balding head and looking grouchier than ever. "The kettle! I need the kettle!" he bellowed in his screechy little voice, grabbing it, shaking it, and pouring Mummy's coffee out onto the peat fire, extinguishing it along with most of the room's light, for the morning was young and gloomy. "I need the pot, too," Daddy Taty was still grumbling. "Curses to ye, Daddy, for now we have no coffee, no fire, nor light." Mummy Tata always wished patience for Daddy, who had a fiery Taty temper, which only ever seemed to add more troubles to any Taty crisis. "The roof is leaking. I thought those children of ours had thatched the ceiling." Now Daddy was stamping his funny little feet awfully mad, convinced that somebody must always be responsible for all of his many troubles. "Now, Daddy, you know very well that it's been raining now most every night. No thatching can possibly hold that much water." Mummy always defended her children. In fact, she defended most everyone, one of the little tidbits that bred her sweet demeanor. She hadn't really meant to curse Daddy, and now she sighed as she sat down on a stool, which was really just a button of wood from the pussy willow tree. She supposed that Daddy had taken drought with the gnome last evening, but decidedly kept those thoughts to herself, for Daddy was ornery and wet enough already. Sweet Tata came running and crying into the kitchen. "There's a big frog in my bed. I can tolerate spiders, but I felt something cold and slimy." "Yes, Mommy calmed her daughter. You know, Daddy, it seems time to move on to spring house till June. Sweet Tata, did you or not double pack the thatching? What's that, Daddy? The thatching beneath the stone last autumn, along with your brothers? Oh, you mean the roof's leaking? Leaking? Leaking if we stay here will be all the way to Land's End by June. Now tell me true, Sweet Tata, did you finish with the thatching? I'm not as spry and spudly as I used to be, and me old bones were not up for the move this spring. Well, Daddy, as you recall, I had a lot of things to do at that time, what with the harvest and the spinning and the milking. Well, those boys were supposed to help do their share, but with Leaf wandering off, falling asleep, hiding from me, and even Fry trying to smoke the thatching, well, I suppose that it was a half-hearted attempt on my behalf. And a leaky roof to boot, Daddy retorted. Boys, lazy, worthless sons of... Watch your tongue, Mummy reminded. Get up. Get out of those beds. The roof is leaking. Daddy stormed inside their little den, shaking his careless sons out of their burlap hammocks that Mommy, Taty, and Sweet Tata had stitched together for them, tossing their little goose-down blankets and pillows onto the shining little floor that Mummy had swept clean for her boys each morning. Get up, you slovenly Taties. You did not help your sweet sister with the thatching, and now the roof is leaking with these heavy rains. Now I have to be moving my poor old bones up to spring house till June. And that means we got some early planting ahead of us today. And since it still seems to be pretty dry in here, your Mummy, Sweet Tata, and I will be sleeping in here with ye tonight because we have to get some sleep for the long haul tomorrow. Leaf let out a yawn. He didn't mean to be rude, for he was a sweet-natured thing, as was the small Fry that was now rubbing his little black eyes and scratching his fat little stomach. Mind ye, as the three little Taties trudged towards the kitchen, it's going to be a perilous journey, what with those rotten Taties out there and that wicked raven. There's my little men. Daddy's right. I've sent Sweet Tata up to bless the seeds and spuds. I'll start our packing. You boys get dressed so you can try to find a dry patch for our autumn garden. We'll have plenty of nuts and berries at spring house. Phooey, said the Fry. Well, I ought to plague ye with the rickets, Daddy cried. Do you boys want to eat? Yes, let's eat. Leaf just seemed to have awoken. Coffee, please, ma'am. There is no coffee, as your daddy poured it out to catch the leaks. You'll just have to have your milk and be off. The little Taties ate their cakes and drank their milk with silence and regret. Chapter 2. Meanwhile, Sweet Tata was supposed to be tending to the blessings of seeds and roots, a time-honored Taty tradition, when along came a blackbird, perched on the ruin of a stone wall beneath the pussy willow tree. Sweet Tata was not supposed to consort with the blackbirds, as Daddy said they spread lies and gossip and were generally a sneaky bird. But Sweet Tata could not help but notice his lovely dark wings would seem to stay dry and just glisten despite all the rain dampening and frizzing her flaming curls. Truth be known, Sweet Tata admired the blackbirds and was even known to have caught a ride with them once or twice. Caw, caw, come over here, Sweet Tata. I might have something for you. This particular old crow was an old bachelor by the name of Jack. He only had one good eye and at least 6 different versions of the story as to how he had lost the other. I only have to finish with the blessing of the seeds right now. I really don't have the time this morning. Caw, caw, come now, sister. You caw can't be planting in this rain. Sweet Tata had put down the pouches and was now scratching Jack's neck. We're moving tomorrow, Jack, so the yams, carrots, turnips, parsnips, everything must get planted before we go. The house is leaking and we can't stay another day. What's another day to the Taties, who live as long as the stone? Daddy is mad. He'll be real sore if I don't have the roots ready for planting. The morning mist was swirling around Jack, and Sweet Tata thought it gave him a noble appearance. If she only had a set of lovely feathers like Jack's, she could fly away. "You know why your daddy is so upset and impatient," he crooned. "No, I try to stay out of personal, secret brownie affairs." But secretly she was feeling guilty, found out, as if Jack, along with everybody else in the forgotten hedgerow, knew how she hadn't finished with the thatching of the dry bundles of grass, because she could not find Leaf for help. Taties was slow and uncooperative, and she was babysitting for the hedgehog in return for some plastic beads, the color of the sky, that Mrs. Hedgehog had come across. "Your daddy drinks with the gnome on rainy nights. They smoke filthy pipes and dance around the fire, lilts and jigs. No wonder he's cranky by morning with all this rain. Well, Sweet Tata, I'll have to say, the little man never sleeps, and that gnome, well, he sleeps all day. Doesn't get out of his comfortable bed till near supper time, when he commences with his belting of the moonshine. Will you please scratch under my wing here? Oh, yes, my, I believe I have a tick. Could you have a look, please, sweetie? Well, it isn't nice to spread gossip, Jack. Sweetie, I may only have one good eye since that big-eared cat got me other, but old Jack knowed a thing or two about the goings-on in Hedgerow." Just then Daddy sprung out of a tunnel of earth and root beneath the tree with her little buds, and off old Jack flew without even a thank you for Sweet Tata, who had removed his tick. "Begone, you black devil!" Daddy yelled, clenching his fist and gnashing his couple of tiny sharp teeth. "It's not right, I say, Sweet Tata, always consorting with the blackbirds. Now. Sweet Tata had started to cry. "I know it's not your fault, as you and your mummy are of a sweet and forgiving nature, but those birds are always up to no good, always spying and laughing. Why can't you find a nice lark to play with?" "The larks don't pay me any mind, Daddy. I try." Now, he patted her damp little head. "I'm supposing all the plantings have been blessed, yes?" Sweet Tata dried her eyes on his shirt sleeve and nodded an affirmative, although she knew it was a lie, and she knew she'd be plagued for it. All through the morning Daddy kept his boys busy with the planting, and well into the afternoon, which was not an easy feat considering Leaf kept on crying and fidgeting over blisters, and Taties kept asking the same questions he asked every time they planted anything. He seemed to never learn, or had forgotten Daddy's answers. He rattled out questions too fast to listen for the answers, maybe. Sometimes Daddy wondered where these two Taties had come from. To make matters worse, their usual garden was little more than a mud puddle with all the rain, so they were forced to weed until old great-grandpa Taties' long-neglected garden and sow their doubtful harvest there. "I must tell ye, boys, if it weren't for Sweet Tata's blessing handed down from my sweet Grandpa Taty Ma, well, I wouldn't hope much for this sorry-looking, sopping mess." And it was indeed a sorry-looking puddle of a patch by the evening. Mummy had packed for them, which hadn't taken long, since they only had 2 sets of clothes each, several nightgowns and caps, some pots and pans, a bundle of beeswax candles, and a few other essential odds and ends, not waiting for them at Spring House. So they ate their last supper for a while in their damp little kitchen, washed their smudgy hands and faces, and all nestled into sleep, falling under a quick and peaceful slumber. Leaf was snoring, all except for Sweet Tata, who was feeling guilty for lying to Daddy. Chapter 3. Morning had broken, and the little Taty family were packed and on their way. The old gnome was not yet to bed when they passed his abode, within the exposed hollows of roots beneath an old maple. He was sitting on his front stoop, which was now a damp tuft of moss, but he didn't seem to mind as he sat smoking his morning slumber pipe. He smiled, and the corners of his ancient eyes crinkled as he waved to Daddy and motioned to him to come by. "I don't think there's time for this, Daddy," Mummy warned him. "Hold on, you wait here. I'll just be a minute." But a minute in Brownie time can be very short or very long, depending what you think about. So Daddy left the Taties with the wagon, and followed that gnome into his dwelling, which was really rather deep and comfortable, something the other Taties would never know, for the gnome was rather old and cranky, or so he seemed, but he and Daddy had been friends for a very long time. "Have you ever heard the gnome's voice?" Fry Taty asked the others. "Shh, let's not talk about him, it's rude. Let's talk about something else," Mommy said. Sweet Tata was riding Hairy Hedgehog, her former charge, that was only just recently big enough to ride. It should be said that hedgehog prickles do not bother the little people, for in spite of their diminutive stature, they are really rather resilient by nature. Leaf had just awoken from within the blankets piled in the wagon. He preferred goose down comfort to hedgehog. "I heard his voice once." "No, you did not." Sweet Tata knew better. "No way. What's he sound like?" Fry chimed, only to be cut off by his sister, Sweet. "Nobody has ever heard his voice except for the crow." "Daddy's heard his voice." Fry came to his brother's defense. "Well, perhaps Daddy has," Sweet Tata admitted, when Mother thankfully got her out of it with, "I said it's enough. And here comes your father back again. Now, no more about it. I won't have you getting Daddy's goat any more today." Daddy walked towards them proudly with his new carved wooden walking stick made of oak by the gnome himself. He looked like a shepherd, and the Taties all thought about what good friends Daddy and the gnome must be, and not another word was said about it. Fry also brought along his darling Robert, the caterpillar. Fry Taty had kept other pets before Robert. There were crickets and potato bugs, Mr. Roly-Poly and his family, but Robert was his cuddly darling. He was warm and fuzzy, brown stripy, and a famous singer and songwriter, quite a wonder to the hedgerow, and the envy of the cicadas and katydid. Robert seemed especially sleepy the past couple of days, and Fry Taty only figured him to be blue about the move and hoped it wasn't something more serious. Fry had bundled him up snug in his pillowcase and stuffed him in his woven knapsack, along with some nightcaps and bedding. The Taty started down the side of the desolate hill, keeping under the high grass, which was still wet and slippery. "Stay along the stones," Daddy warned, and hitched the wagon to Harry's backside with a precise knot. Mummy carried a red spotty toadstool as an umbrella and wore smart yellow galoshes. Daddy donned a great white wrap, woven by Mummy, of the finest white wool, and his tall brown booties. Sweet Tata hid her bright curls beneath a babushka. The hedgehog entourage continued down, alongside the winding hill, unimpeded, but somewhere along the way the small fry's footing and attention was lost in an instant, when he swore he saw a beautiful fairy flit across and seem to pass within a flash of gold before his startled eyes, and down he slid, slamming into Mummy and Daddy along his way. "Ah!" 3 little Taties crashing down the muddy hill, speeding brown ball of mud, booties, and yellow galoshes. When they finally landed with a bumpity bump at the bottom in a soft fern bed, Daddy left out a deep Taty groan. "Oh, me back!" Sweet Tata, Hairy Hedgehog, and Leaf were left far up the hill. "Well," sputtered the small fry, "we seem to have made record time." "Don't chide your daddy, Fry. Shame on you. Look, he's hurt. Are you all right, Daddy?" "Yes, Mummy, I'll live, but I'll never make it up the hill to Spring House, not tonight, and I've lost my walking stick somewhere along the way." "I'm sorry, Daddy." Fry Taty wiped himself off, but it proved a sorry attempt, for the fall had covered them all in mud from head to toe, straight down the backside. What a sorry sight the little Taties were. "I'll find your stick and Sweet Tata and Leaf. We'll pack you in the little wagon so you can ride the rest of the way." "No, Fry, you'll get lost." "Don't worry, Mummy. You wait here with Daddy under the fern. I'll be back." "Let the Fry go, Mummy." "No, Daddy. He's never gone off alone before. Maybe we should all sit tight and wait for Leaf and Sweet Tata. The boy is 102. He must grow up sometime. Today is not that day, Daddy. And she was right, but Fry Tatty was already making his way back up the hill. Chapter 4. In the meantime, two of the rottenest Taties of them all, Mort and Moldy, were out enjoying the miserable cold rain. They had crossed the stream in their birch bark boat, propelled by a couple of dark dragonfly. Gorgeous day for a boat ride. Mort let the cold rain drip down his sharp chin. Yes, darling. They might have 4 sharp teeth between the two of them. The boat hit the other side of the stream and Mort crawled ashore, offering Moldy his grimy claw as she stepped from the boat. I hear there is some lovely poison ivy and yewberries on this side of the stream, Morty. Yes, and look how sweet and green everything is. Yes, Moldy pulled back her greasy, bedraggled hair. The rotten Taty were a darker, sickly breed. Purple, black, and blue. Moldy had removed her cap, which she was busy filling with yewberries and stinging nettle, when they crawled out from under the ivy and approached the stone wall and pussy willow tree. One-Eyed Jack sat in silence upon the wall until the wind kicked up and delivered him up their powerful stench, which made even a nosy old bird as himself reel and fly away. Look, Morty, a lovely little mud bath. I want it. And Moldy dropped her cap, pulled off her dreadful stockings, and dove into Great-Grandpa Taty's garden and our poor little Taty's harvest crops. This was the most action the forlorn little patch had seen in generations. Moldy rolled about the just planted roots and seeds, while Mort tread about, squish, squish, with his awful little feet. He even spat right there in the ancient garden before they gathered their nasty selves together and made their wicked way back across the black stream and home underneath the old hollow oak. Birds avoided the place, with the exception of the single raven that Daddy Taty feared. But the hollow oak housed many, many more rotten Taties than there are sweet Taties. Perhaps some of them, or maybe all of them, were once good, but gone bad.